Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of EZAnime, our anime podcast, obviously.
Yeah.
It's going to be going once a month for now. We're figuring everything out.
Yes.
So there's going to be some bumps in the road, so take it easy.
Cool your jets.
Yeah, cool your jets. We're just working on it. So, I mean, you can see our makeshift setup, which is pretty sweet, actually. I love this. Got this Berserk manga right here.
Yeah.
And the game courtesy of Ben Moore. So, yeah, we're hyped. We're going to talk about a little series today called Berserk that me and Ben are big fans of. We've actually consumed Berserk in several different ways, I realized when I was talking to you earlier.
Yeah, but like, how to consume Berserk is actually a pretty tough question. It's
we will get into that.
Yeah.
But like, Ben Moore, let's talk about it. What is Berserk?
Absolutely, Brad. That's a good question. Berserk is a story by a man named Kentaro Miura.
What a man.
Wrote the story, illustrates it, writer-illustrator. So this is a phrase that I think is bandied about a lot, but is really interesting when applied to Berserk. It's dark fantasy.
Very dark.
Yeah. And, you know, sometimes I see dark fantasy applied, or dark anything applied to, it's just really violent or it's really shocking. And Berserk is certainly those things. But I think it goes deeper than that, kind of like the themes that it's talking about. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally. Oh, man. Like, we'll talk about, like, the story as we're going along through the podcast.
Yeah.
But, I would say this manga makes you think sometimes.
It does. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. If you had to give an elevator pitch for Berserk, how would you describe it to somebody that's never heard of it before?
It'd be depending on who I'm talking to about it, you know? First of all, I'd be like, okay, it's fantasy. It's very brutal, very dark. A lot of bad stuff happens, but has really great characters. Quite possibly one of the best villains I've ever encountered in any media.
Oh, man. I'm excited to talk about that, man.
Great main character. Also, like, a lot of great depth to the story. There's a level of depth and character to it that so much more than just violence.
Yeah.
Which like you said, certainly shows, but I think it's important to find the little things in there. There's been times where I've, like, read certain things where I'm like, it's interesting the way he's, like, describing this kind of thing. For example, like a church, how they portray the church in that.
Yeah.
And how maybe it's not necessarily good and light as all think it is.
Right.
Kind of thing. And what their like description of what good is and justice and everything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think the sort of description, like, Berserk is trying to answer what is good and what is evil. And the way that it does that, I think, is really cool. Is it doesn't really deal in absolutes. I think the characters that are portrayed as the good guys do some really awful things.
Yeah.
Pretty much every single one of the main characters either has a persistent failing or weakness, or they have a decision that they make that is just bad or self-serving or something like that. And the same, I don't think it's as true for the villains, but I do think there are occasionally very sympathetic villains where they might it's one of those things where they might be truly atrocious people and have done awful things, but Berserk at least shows you their side. You may not like them, you may not necessarily even feel sympathetic for them, but it's like, all right, you're not just evil. There's a path that led up to this.
Yes, they do usually have a motive, and they give you their perspective on everything. It's like, I guess I could kind of see how people would go with that.
Right.
But they're usually insane people.
Yeah, and I think just pulling it back a little bit, I guess we should say, you know, at its core, at its most basic level, Berserk is about this character named Guts who wields this giant sword.
Multiple giant swords.
Multiple giant swords, yeah. And he is cursed, he's branded, and he was betrayed by a friend, and he's basically on a quest for vengeance.
Lost everything he had.
Started with nothing.
Grew to have something, you could say, some sort of family, I would guess he kind of felt like he had.
Right.
Then one man takes it all away from him in one of the most horrific ways you could possibly do anything.
Right. Yeah. And I think talking about Guts is kind of a good way to go a little bit deeper into our conversation. What makes Guts such an effective lead character? Why is he interesting? And how does he change throughout the story?
Guts is an interesting character to me because he's very flawed. Tons of flaws. He's not a good person, especially when you meet him at, like, the beginning of the series, I'd say more so. you feel like you can relate to Guts in weird ways that sounds, because he's used to failure, disappointment, he's used to being alone, loneliness, like human emotions we all feel. But he always manages to pull through with like himself and the help of his friends.
Yeah. But when you say Guts is, especially early on, not a good person, can you talk about where he comes from with that? Like, why isn't he a good person? What happened to him?
Guts was like pretty much raised on the battlefield, like sold into slavery as a kid, having to fight wars constantly. He was a mercenary probably most of his life.
Right.
So he doesn't know trust. He only knows like battle. That's all that Guts really knows, especially at the beginning of the series. Very cold to people, you know.
Right.
Always telling people to shut up or something like that.
お前らの親玉にことづてを頼みたい。黒い剣士が来た。それだけでいい。
Guts has a problem with relationships, and that's kind of a persistent thing that we see throughout the series. And the reason that he has a problem with relationships goes all the way back to the very beginning. You know, the way that he's found, he's found in this despicable situation. There are all these bodies being humped from a tree, and he's like underneath that. And this band of mercenaries, they come by and like, this is a bad omen. But he eventually gets taken in by these mercenaries, and somebody who is a father figure to him, Gambino, really shapes Guts and his outlook on the world. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, pretty much raises him on the battlefield. Guts is trained to fight like immediately growing up. Like as a young kid, he's on the battlefield fighting for his life. He treats them like life lessons, like I would say all his lessons are not safe and almost get Guts killed every time. He'll be like, say, do this, something like that. And everyone else dies around Guts, but somehow he lives. And he's like, oh, you learned your lesson there kind of thing. It's
right.
Like, that's a bad father figure or someone training you, you know?
Right. And this is another thing that I think we see throughout the series where you're talking about him being raised on the battlefield. There's like, throughout Guts' life, it's kind of do or die. You know, he's just
always.
It's like from when he's a very child, if he doesn't learn how to fight, if he doesn't get really good at it, he's gone. And so through necessity, he develops those skills. He becomes an incredible fighter. But when he does show prowess, when he does do well, Gambino is jealous. He is spiteful towards Guts. And Gambino ends up betraying Guts. He, for some coin, allows a pedophile named Donovan to come and take advantage of him. And this scars Guts. Can you talk about the impact that this made on that character?
Man, Guts. He went ballistic, if I remember correctly.
He did. And he also got really scared. He didn't want to be touched.
This definitely plays into later themes with other characters, you know.
Yeah,
like this
for sure.
Definitely puts up a wall with Guts and everybody else, I would say. Why don't you talk about the detail real quick, though, graphic? Because it's pretty graphic.
It is. I mean, it's pretty graphic. It's, you know, and this is one of very many graphic things that is used in Guts. It's going to
be happening a lot,
yeah. And I think, I mean, the graphic is basically, I mean, this pedophile, there's a panel, if you're reading the manga, where he's pinning him down against his will. It's really rough. And I would argue, like, there are things that, like, it doesn't get better. It's not suddenly like, okay, this is an establishing moment. You know, it's going to be really tragic here, and then it's going to go away. Things like this keep happening, and I think it's easy to dismiss Berserk as being, like, shocking for the sake of being shocking. And one of the biggest things that I want to talk about with this episode, and I think why Berserk is so good, is the element of hope, and how Berserk uses hope, and how it plays with its audience, and how it plays with its characters. And what I mean by that is, I feel like Berserk spends a lot of time establishing really terrible situations where you have these people that the story does an excellent job of justifying, like, no, these are awful. You hate them. Like, they are truly vile, and we're going to show you. We're not going to shy away from it. We're going to show you how horrible they can be. And even makes you doubt the heroes.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh no, like, it's just this cycle of disgustingness. But then there's always that moment, I think, where even even in the bleakest moment, there's something for those characters to latch onto. There's something for them to push ahead. Sometimes it's a noble deed. Sometimes it's just somebody saying the right words at the right time. And sometimes, in the case of the big betrayal, it's just, I have to exact vengeance.
Yeah, it's rage.
And I think, like, how that hope, that very small amount of hope, evolves and changes throughout the story is one of the most fascinating things about it.
Yeah. One of the fascinating things about it to me is the one that often gives, I would say, the story hope, who is the Skull Knight.
Yeah. The Skull Knight is a really interesting character, Brad, because he's very purposefully not defined in the way other characters are defined. You know, he's got this mysteriousness about him. Can you describe what the Skull Knight is?
Skull Knight. Just a huge knight clad in armor, skull helmet, of course, knows a lot more than the reader knows about what's going on in the world and, like, maybe something to do with Guts in his future, like laying out the path for Guts. He's kind of like, I would say, the newer mentor to Guts, you know? He kind of teaches Guts, sets him on a kind of a path, but it's never like a willing path.
Right.
But he is, I would say, Guts' savior in that series, kind of. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, a lot of times, and that's what I was going to say, is there are so many moments where, like, Skull Knight appears at just the right moment to kind of save the day.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think in a lesser story, that would feel cheap. That would feel like a Deus Ex Machina. But I think it works
It works in a way. I never feel like, well, that's lame.
Right.
That's lame.
Right.
I never feel like that. I'm like, thank God.
Yeah, and I think the reason that it works is how Berserk plays with mysticism.
Yeah.
And I think you can, like, make parallels with another popular fantasy story, Game of Thrones, or A Song of Fire and Ice, maybe more appropriately. And what I mean by that is it doesn't over-explain its supernatural elements.
Yeah.
You have these demons, these Hellraiser demons, and all of these monsters, and, you know, this magic even that is more developed in the later part of the series. But I don't think it goes out of its way to say this is exactly how this works. This is the exact origin of this. I
mean, it gives you details later on, just small, like, things, but there's still a ton of mystery kind of thing going on.
Yeah. And I think part of the reason that works is, for a long time, the characters that you're seeing, not just Guts, but the Band of the Hawk as well, they're not supernatural.
No, they're not. Yeah.
Right. They're just soldiers that are exceptionally skilled, but the story does a great job of justifying why they're so driven to be as good as they are.
Yeah.
You know, they all have personal stories that are eventually...
Yeah, they all do, and they kind of all do it for one person.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. Are we ready to talk about that person?
Sure.
Okay. Who are we talking about?
So this person's name is Griffith. Pretty much he runs this company called the Band of Hawk, who is a mercenary army.
Yeah.
Griffith has a dream to have his own country. And he pretty much does the worst thing you could do to achieve his goals.
Yep.
Which is sacrifice all of his companions to demons to elevate him. Like, he gets crippled in this story pretty much. He's, like, worn down. He's physically, he cannot do anything. He's like a husk. He pretty much sacrifices everyone he knows to become more powerful and rule. He does not care who he has to step over.
Right.
All of it is just a means for him to achieve his goal. And that's where everyone gets the sacrifice mark, the brand mark. Yeah. Which this... is based
oh my gosh!
Of.
I did not. This is a surprise to me. Brett, that's awesome.
This is from Bloodborne. It's based heavily off that.
Yeah. Where did you get that?
Just online. I don't know. I just Googled it.
All right. I need to Google Berserk shirts after this.
But pretty much everyone dies except, and very graphic, grotesque ways. Everyone dies except for two characters. Guts. Guts loses his eye and his left arm, I believe, during the scuffle. And Casca, which is kind of his, like, love interest he builds throughout that.
Yeah, I would say definitely.
Turns out Griffith does, like, the worst thing ever. Guts is pinned down by demons holding him.
Right.
And Griffith proceeds to rape Casca and making Guts watch. And Guts just like loses his mind while this is going on, as anyone understandably would.
Yeah.
And it just shows you who this person is.
Right.
Who they were, at least before. Like, how they became this being.
Definitely. And I don't think there's language that you can use that is too strong to describe this scene. It is horrifying.
Yes, it's very
appalling.
It's very disturbing.
It's a moment that I think if you're invested in the story up to that point, it will stick with you for one reason or another, right?
Yeah.
It will leave its mark.
Like, by that time, you've seen a lot of stuff in that series, but this takes it to a whole nother level.
Yeah, and this is in the Golden Age arc, and you did a great job of summarizing Griffith and what happens to him, but I want to go back and kind of talk about a little bit how this evolution happens from sort of the leader of this band of mercenaries that eventually becomes like renowned for their skill.
Yeah, they're very world famous.
Yeah, and it's it's interesting because when Guts first meets Griffith, I would say Griffith is kind of in a place of. He's obviously in a place of power, but he's also in this like mental privilege because everybody around him worships him.
Yeah, everyone.
And they worship him because he has a clear vision. He's like, I have this dream. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do everything, just exactly as you said, I'm going to do everything in my power to achieve this. And that focus, that drive, gives him a charisma, this sort of irresistible charisma that is amazing. And that's kind of like contrasted with this like childlike nature that he has.
I want to bring up his design real quick and how brilliant I think is the design they took with him. How he's like a beautiful man, like very angelic, like white flowing long hair, like winged armor and everything. Like thinking like what an angel would almost look like.
Yeah.
And how this angel literally becomes the devil.
Brad, I want to kind of take a break, I guess, from discussing broad themes.
Sure.
And I want to talk about favorite arcs because, like any anime, well, not like any anime, I suppose, but like many anime, this can be easily divided into arcs. What is your favorite arc and what's going on in that arc and what makes you so...
My favorite arc is when Guts obtains the Berserk armor. He gets his Berserker armor that he puts on him that changes him. He cannot feel pain. His bones like fix automatically if they're wounded or anything like that, but he loses his mind. He literally goes insane in Berserk. And he will kill anyone around. Like even his fighting style changes. If you guys just played Dark Souls 1, it's pretty much Artorias, how he fights and everything like that. How he flips around, everything like that. Shrieky can like go into another dimension and kind of calm the beast within Guts. And this changes Guts. He slowly, like we said earlier, he didn't really trust anyone. He's been roughing around, but we're seeing Guts kind of like mature to a more appropriate figure, I would say, who's not as evil or like bloodthirsty all the time, even though he does deal with that.
Right.
But you see Guts try to like make an effort to change, especially he does this all especially for Casca.
Yeah. I would say Casca is this like constant
I would say
humanizing
it's
element.
the driving one of the two driving forces of Guts.
And I think it's fair to say that especially at specific points, if he didn't have her, or
he would,
it would be a very different. I think much more like it would be a Guts totally consumed by despair.
100%.
But the Berserker armor is interesting because I think it mirrors the transformation that Griffith went under, when he sacrificed all his friends, becoming Fento. You definitely see, a Guts backed into a corner using this power that at times turns him against his friends, and if his friends weren't able to stop him, definitely
Griffith lets
moments.
it fully consume him, and Guts tries to not.
Right,
but he struggles with it all the time.
Right,
all the time.
Yeah, but like the methods that they're using are very similar, but that difference that wasn't there with Griffith is Guts clearly leans on those around him.
Oh yeah, big time.
And Griffith said, "Nope, only I can do this." And I think that's what separates them in a lot of ways.
Yeah, like Griffith does get, he gets an army later on, a demon army, we should say.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
An army of apostles.
Yeah. But Griffith is definitely out for himself.
Right.
The most. Like, he plays, like, the facade, I would say, of, like, a caring leader and everything like that.
Right.
Which he can be in some weird ways. Some weird, like, demented ways I don't even want to think about. But, like, people look up to this guy because they don't know the whole story. But at the end of the day, it is Griffith, and he will do whatever he has to.
Yeah, and because he views those around him as pawns.
Pretty much, yeah.
Whereas I think Guts, it takes a long time for him to trust somebody to open up just based on his past experience and how he just gets screwed over again and again and again. But I think that is what he values most in the world. Like, there's a period of time where Griffith is the most important thing to him. Now, like, Casca is the most important thing to him. And him reluctantly allowing his group
to join him,
to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I think ever since Guts was a little kid, there's a little tiny part of him that just wants a place to call home. Wants family, wants friends. And that's, I don't know. I think that's really cool. That's really relatable because unlike some other protagonists in anime that want that, right? Like, it becomes their entire identity, whereas Guts is still this badass, strong, like, I think he conveys a lot without words.
He does, his presence.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot more interesting in a lot of ways than some anime where you just have characters like over describing their feelings for entire episodes.
I feel like Guts really does that,
Yeah.
People just get the vibe because he's wearing all black, the armor, and he has this humongous sword.
Oh, man.
I think, like, one of the parts someone describes as like a slab of iron or something like that.
Right. They're like...
like, people have not seen anything like this. Also, like, how can they're like confused how he can wield this kind of power and everything like that.
Yeah, I love that description in the book where they're just like, it's just a slab.
Yeah.
Like, it can't even be described as a sword because it's too ridiculous. So I've done this with a couple of people and it's been successful and it's how I got into it. So I think I'm like, that's the perspective that I'm coming from is the movies that came out are really extremely readily available. They're very cheap to watch.
Yes, you can. Yeah, that's a great way to support it.
Yeah, whether you're renting them or buying them or watching them on Netflix, like here's a totally legal, easy way to watch these things. And even though it only gives you one arc, that's a foundational arc, right?
It's super important.
The rest of the story revolves around what happens there, and it will let you know. Because I think if you watch the Golden Age arc and you're like, oh, I'm not really feeling it, I don't think Berserk is for you, right?
Correct. So it's not going to change drastically for you to probably be into it.
Right. And while like there is some
changes, yes, but like that's like the world of that universe kind of thing like that.
Right.
You'll get the feel of that universe from watching those.
Totally. And while I have some qualms with it, you get a read on it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to talk about how we discovered Berserk.
Yes. Good call, Brad.
Because I think you and me discovered Berserk at very different times.
Yeah, we did.
Sounds like.
But I think we had similar reasons that
people
are either totally expecting or not expecting at all.
Like if you're looking at me and Ben, it's like super obvious why we started reading Berserk. Of course, I'm talking about Hidetaka Miyazaki, creator of Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, all that good stuff. I read an interview, I think it was when Dark Souls was out, him talking about how he was heavily inspired by Berserk for a lot of things. And I knew about Berserk, I like knew it existed, but I never read it, I never seen it. And I was like, well, I love this, whatever this guy's doing, so I'm gonna check this out.
Right.
And holy shit, was that man right on the money?
Yep.
Good God.
Excuse me. Yes, Brad, I had the exact same thing. There was like one little additional wrinkle, but totally, like the Dark Souls, like video games being my primary interest, right?
Yeah.
Like Dark Souls reinvigorated my interest in video games.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Like I loved video games, but I think as a video game player, and I don't want to turn this into a video game podcast, that's not what this is, but I think as a video game player, I think you can get to a point where it's like, man, I've kind of seen everything.
Yes. I definitely know that feeling, and I felt something different with Souls games. Totally.
Yeah, totally.
I reached that pinnacle that you did too. Like, I played Demon Souls first, and I was like, holy crap, this is really cool.
Yeah.
But then when Dark Souls came out, like really expanded upon it in like the best way possible kind of thing.
Right.
That's when I was like, okay, this guy is really onto something.
Yeah, totally. It was like, I've run around, jumped and collected things. I've shot things. I've done menu-based battle systems. You know, like you just, you feel the stagnation and you play something like Dark Souls and it's like, oh my gosh, like this is just pushing so many different boundaries in so many different ways. It's challenging.
Yeah.
And, you know, you look at the man responsible for that. Obviously, it's not just him. It's an entire team. But you look at the figurehead, Miyazaki, and you're like, all right, how did this guy get here? How did he make this thing? And then you read Berserk. And I was like, once I saw that, I was like, all right, I have to get Berserk. But I got to give credit to you because but when I met you, you were like, Berserk is amazing. And your just enthusiasm for it was like, okay, I need to like, this thing that I'm interested in, I need to put at the top of the list.
That's probably because when you and me met, we were like anime bond, right?
Right. And just like, you're like, hey, Souls is amazing. And I'm like, yes, it is. Yeah, it was just this immediate connection.
Like, oh yeah, we're good friends now.
Right, yeah. Like, okay, we're never going to have any problems. Yeah, totally. And hopefully, we can do that for other people because, like, I really think Berserk is one of those things where I feel confident saying, like, you know, if you're interested, put it at the top of that list.
Yeah.
You know?
That would please me so much. Like, if we got one person to get into this series, I would be happy.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, man. I want to talk about some real, like, side tangent about Miyazaki.
Yeah.
The games, or game, I should say, inspired him. Do you know what game it is?
Wait, I'm sorry, what?
Do you know what the games inspired Miyazaki to get into games?
The games that...
the game, I should say.
The game that inspired Miyazaki to start working on video games.
Where he changed his career.
I don't know. I feel like I've read this, but
You probably have read it.
Okay.
It's Eco.
Yes!
Fumito
I remember
Ueda
that, yes.
Was the one that drove him. So, he has, like, the most pristine taste, you know?
Right.
Like, how does this man have such good taste? I can't even, like, handle it.
Brad, I wish everything in the world could work like this, and obviously it's not that simple for very good reasons, but it's just like, all right, you have this amazing thing, right? Eco, inspire this man that does amazing things that are inspiring somebody else, and you just want to, like, continue that chain of inspiration, you know?
Dude, Miyazaki, like, inspired me to get into games.
Yeah.
Because, as you know, I came into game industry late.
Yeah,
I came into games when I was 27. I was hairstylist before. I remember Miyazaki reading, like, one day he decided he didn't want to do it. And he followed his passion and worked for it. And he got there. So I was like, I could do that too. Yeah. And I did.
And you did.
Dreams happen, man. Based Miyazaki.
Miyazaki, I know you're watching.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
This message of gratitude.
Please reach.
So I think it's important. We've done a lot of gushing about Souls and Miyazaki and Berserk. I think it is important to say, is there anything about Berserk that we don't like?
Some of the arcs I felt like kind of dragged on for me.
Sure. Which of those arcs?
There's this arc where they're like on a boat and they go into this island.
I know what you're talking about.
And it just kind of like goes on really weird. I was like, this is kind of cool, I guess. Like, it's still kind of cool, you know, because it's Berserk.
Right.
But I'm just like, let's pick it up a little bit, kind of thing.
Do you think that problem is exacerbated by the fact that new chapters are coming out at an agonizingly slow pace?
Absolutely. I absolutely feel that.
When you get that new chapter and it's not like...
Yeah, you're just like, come on, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like in the grand scheme, I guess it's fine because you go through it pretty quickly. But if you're waiting, yes, it can be brutal.
Yeah. Totally. I think something that I get frustrated about with Berserk from a storytelling perspective is, and it's very sympathetic and played, I think, is some of the villains are so strong that when you have a villain that whose storyline doesn't resonate as much or doesn't feel as deep, it's more apparent, I think, because sometimes when you have like a villain like Griffith, and then it switches to somebody else who's still good, but you don't feel that intense anger or hate or like that drive of like, I really want guys to take that down. It like, because the highs are so high, I think it makes the still good but not quite as good parts like feel worse than they actually are.
Are you talking about like the Demon Emperor or something like that?
Yeah, like an assortment of villains.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Griffith sets the bar so high.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like everyone else is not going to look as good.
Right. And I the thing is like, I wouldn't even say the Golden Age arc is my favorite arc. I really like the Conviction arc as well. Oh, yeah. And stuff that comes after is excellent. But yeah. I just want to say really quick, kind of breaking off the topic at hand, but the Conviction arc, something I like about it that's so good. And the Black Swordsman arc has this as well, but you don't have the context of what happens beforehand while you're reading the Black Swordsman arc. So why I like the Conviction arc so much is you see what happens with Griffith, and then like in the Conviction arc, there's just a very long period of time where it's just Guts dealing with the world after this betrayal.
Yeah, by himself.
And it's just like, man, the Holy See and what they're doing, and just that despair. It's so bleak, and watching them work through that, like, oh man, captivating stuff for sure.
I want to talk about is like the brand marks they have. We didn't mention this, but pretty much demons are drawn to that. So one thing that Guts and Casca has to deal with is fighting demons every night. So they have to sleep in the day, kind of fight at night. And Casca at this point is like a child. Her memory is like white. She's like the mind of a child pretty much now. So Guts has this burden of trying to protect her the whole time and trying to take care of her while he's trying to take care of himself and battle his inner rage and everything like that.
Right.
Ugh. I feel so bad for Guts.
Yeah. I feel so bad for Guts, and I especially feel bad for Casca.
Man, I feel so bad for Casca too, dude.
I'm really interested to see how that storyline holds up, because, she too has everything stripped away from her. Yeah. And
I would say maybe more than Guts. Where
she starts in the story, or where we see her, she's so strong and she's so capable, and she's doing so much because like she's just a great female character in a lot of ways, or at least a female character that I thought was really cool.
Oh yeah, I love Casca. Love Casca.
And to have that stripped away, and I think what's cool is how Guts responds to her afterward. Like, this is a man that can be pretty cruel to people, that can talk down to them, that can say some things. But, like, I always get the sense from Guts that despite the guilt and the sympathy that he feels toward her, that there's always this level of respect here. Even though, her mind is completely destroyed, that she can't take care of herself, that he has this respect for this woman that means so much to him. And I think that's really cool.
I think she means, like, even more to him now than, like, Griffith or anything like that.
Yeah,
throughout
absolutely.
the story, it just kind of escalates into that.
And that scene, man, when he sees her, after what happens, after the Advent, oh man,
heavy stuff, dude. Jeez,
heavy stuff indeed.
そうか、二晩も添い寝したんだ。妙な感情が芽生えても不思議じゃねえ。
もう一度言ってみろ。その首叩き落とす。
冗談だよ、冗談。行くぞ。
Brad, do you think we're ready to wind down the show and get to the final part?
I think we are, yeah.
Okay, so how we want to end every show of EZAnime is we've got some recommendations, because the way that we're formatting the show, we're only talking about one thing at a time, and there's a lot of stuff out there. I know you guys want us to talk about a lot of different things, and this is kind of a way for us to comment on something else and maybe pimp it and get you to check it out and see if you like it. So what have you got, Brad? What is
I
your
actually have a
recommendation?
different one that I was talking to you about.
Oh,
I'm going to recommend the original first season of Macross.
nice.
One
Classic.
of like the first times I was like super in love with anime, because like I grew up watching Speed Racer when I was really young, and like the original Dragon Ball, but like when I saw Macross, it was something kind of different I'd never really seen before, you know, like kind of like more mature themes like politics and awesome robots shooting around and everything like that. I think it's one of my favorites of all time, I would say.
Nice. So you kind of mentioned the characters talking about politics and stuff, and having some things that really blew your mind when you saw it at a younger age.
Because I'd never seen anything really like that when I was watching anime.
With that level of depth.
Yeah, like I was like, this feels more grown up kind of thing like that, you know?
Yeah. So what, I guess just leading on that a little bit harder, what separates it from all of the other mecha anime?
The mecha anime, I would say it's like one of the forefathers for sure, like that and the OG Gundam. I will say that there's a point in that series that made a big impact on me where I was like, whoa, anime is like really intense when a character dies. That's one moment where I was like, this is standing out to me, because I know Gundam, you know, kind of things like that. It's just kind of about like the story of how they're pretty much on Earth and they get in space and they're being hunted by aliens like this whole time. It's just kind of how they're doing with that. I mean, it's very similar to Gundam, but it's just like, do you like the kind of the mechs this story, or the story of the telling, or the characters? You know, like Rick Hunter. I really love Rick Hunter. He's like the main character, and there's this character he looks up to and everything like that. Kind of their relationship growing up.
I need to watch this.
I'm really surprised you haven't seen it.
I know. I'm surprised and ashamed myself.
It's really cool, dude. I really love it. And dude, I really love like late 70s, early 80s anime. Like that kind of like art style and everything like that. I really like it. I do too, man. I really like it.
I would even extend that. There's a lot of 90s anime where you just it just feels like a good home cooked meal. Like, you know, you haven't had in a long time. And I'm not one of those people that thinks like, oh man, like old anime is always the best and all new stuff is trash.
Absolutely not.
I don't feel that way. But you know, nostalgia is a powerful thing.
Yeah, I mean, they're just different art styles and everything like that too.
Right.
It's just like I like the way it looks. Like you can like you say, you can appreciate everything like that.
Yeah.
But I always got like a soft spot, you know, kind of for that thing like that. Captain Harlock, the way it looks and everything. I'm like, yes, this is awesome.
Yes. Brad, I'm gonna recommend. Before I recommend it, I just need to kind of talk about how
I never heard of this.
How I consume anime and why it can be frustrating, I think, for some people when they're like, have you seen this? And it's like, no, because the way that I like to do it is I'll like to read a manga or watch an anime that is at least somewhat heavy, like is
not like super lighthearted and
not necessarily super lighthearted, but
like a more mature tone to in some areas.
Yeah,
or like,
and it's
like,
not.
I would say like in storytelling ways, kind of like that.
Right. Where gotcha. It's where you know there's some level of gravitas to it. I'm not saying it's like life changing or that it's like incredibly dramatic or anything, but some level of weight, or at least it's attempting to do that. And then as soon as I finish a series that's like that, I like to go the opposite direction.
The cool off.
Yeah, the cool off. Yeah. I love that. I love just having something lighthearted, fun, that I'm not taking all that seriously. But once in a while, I'll find a comedy that is also really, really funny, but, you know, speaks to something that I can really relate to. And it just so happens to be that, so this is called, no matter how I look at it, it's your guys' fault. It's you guys' fault that I'm not popular, which is kind of a cumbersome title. In Japan, it's known as Watamote. But what it's about is it's this girl who suffers crippling anxiety.
Oh my God.
And I mean, when I say crippling anxiety, I don't just mean that it's awkward some of the times or that, you know, she just has trouble making more friends than she was like. I mean, it's like, it's so bad that she pretty much can't, you know, she can't go to a store and like talk to the person that's checking her out. She can't go to it's crippling in the truest sense of the word. It's her entire life is dealing with this. Every chapter she's trying to think of a new way to overcome this anxiety, and it's really kind of this in a way, kind of this black humor where it's like, all right, this is a thing that people suffer, and you're making fun of it. And I've seen people come out and criticize that. But I actually think the reason why I like it, why I find it so funny, is as somebody who does suffer from anxiety, who's felt some of these things, like going super extreme and making it lighthearted is like kind of comforting in a way, where it's like,
yeah,
you know, people say the best way to get over something is to laugh about it, and I think that's kind of true here. Where I don't think it's saying, haha, look at this, you know, serious thing. I think it's like, you know, let's explore this through humor.
Yeah, I mean, there's different types of medicine, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of thing like that. Like,
Absolutely.
This could be something relieving to someone.
Right, and I think it's just such an effective way to explore it. And sometimes it's hard to sell this without ruining everything, but it is actually extremely funny. Like, just these awkward situations where it's, you know, just characters misinterpreting something, or and I think when you kind of have this stick where it's like, all right, she's going to every single chapter she's going to find a new way to try to get popular. I think you run into the problem of, all right, is this going to get stale? Is this going to be a formula over and over again? And the creative ways that they find new ways for her to like try to deal with this, it hasn't gotten old yet.
Ben, it's from I'm getting like, this may be like a totally inappropriate thing, but I'm getting like I'm thinking of Roadrunner trying to, or Coyote trying to get the Roadrunner right now, and he's always trying some new thing to try to get the Roadrunner.
I actually think that's a pretty apt comparison, but it's just like, you know, when you think of like Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, like it's just these outlandish cartoon characters where like everything is exaggerated here.
But I would say there's
cartoony.
probably more relatable things in that.
Right, where you're like, oh,
and you could probably,
I've kind of gone through
I feel
this.
like you could probably, like, everyone could probably see themselves in some way with this character.
Yeah, and so I think it's good. Like, the slapstick is there, the ridiculousness is there, the humor is there, but then there's like, underneath all that, there's also this other thing to latch onto, which I think is really cool. And yeah, if you've ever thought about that stuff, maybe you, or even if you haven't, like I don't like if you're like, I've never, you know, felt anxious, or I've never had problems making friends, or maybe you're just the perfect person.
Coolest,
I still think
cat around.
It's worth checking out. There is an animated adaptation which I have not seen, so I can't speak to that. I've only been reading the manga.
All right, everybody. That is the first episode of EZAnime. It was a blast. I had a lot of fun doing this, dude.
I had a lot of fun. You know, this is a new thing. I didn't know I was gonna go, but
none of us did. I don't think we knew how it was gonna go when we walked in this room, kind of thing.
We didn't. That happens a lot.
Yeah, we're like, let's just try and see how it goes. But I think it went well.
I think so too.
Please forgive all our mistakes that I'm sure we made.
Yep.
Yada yada yada. I'm sure we did a lot of that.
Scrub City.
First episode, Scrub City.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, like we're open to that. We got something wrong, tell us. We don't care. Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, there's one other thing I want to bring up, Brad. First of all, if you're watching this, if you enjoyed it, this is free for everybody. It will remain free for everybody forever. We want to spread the anime love. But we're also going to do something for people that support us on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/EZAllies. It's the best way to keep this kind of thing going. In fact, were it not for already the abundance of support that we've gotten, we wouldn't be able to do a show like this.
I
know. It's not something that we could have done at Game Trailers because we couldn't have justified it. But it's like you guys were excited about this. You wanted to see it happen. And your tremendous support allowed it to happen. And if you are a $1 Patreon and above, you are going to be able to vote on the next thing that we talk about. So we're going to have a list of things, and you can vote on what you want to see. And what's great is it's kind of a win-win situation. These are like all series that we want to talk about already.
We just didn't know when we were going to.
And so you just kind of get to decide the order of that, which will be a lot of fun. So yeah, $1 and up, you're going to be able to vote on that. That's going to be, again, patreon.com/EZAllies. That poll will be in the body of the first episode. You're going to be able to find it there. So yeah. Is there any final closing thoughts that we want to say about Berserk?
I was just thinking about this note that's on your iPad.
Yeah.
And it just says, read the fucking manga.
Yep. Brett, that's what I was going to say.
that's what I want to end it, dude.
Yeah. Read the manga.
Cool.
All right, everybody.
Bye-bye.